Assalamu alaikum. This is the third episode for against atheism, any chapters. So this will be named Denying God, Denying You. And it's going to be an argument from consciousness. Consciousness. So, if you deny God, you deny yourself. This is known as phenomenal consciousness. Alright? So, phenomenal consciousness relates to our ability to have an inner subjective experience of what it is like to experience a particular conscious state. Too tough to understand? Let me give you an example. When I eat my favorite chocolate, I am aware of that internal experience and I can actually appreciate what it is like to be in that conscious state. Other people will have their own perspectives of chocolate, but they will never fully experience or comprehend what I feel. Okay? Now, even if a person tells that he is feeling sad, happy, he's in pain, etc., it can still never be possible for them to tell us how they feel. You know what I'm saying? They can never tell us how they feel. I mean, they can try to tell you, but how they are feeling in that particular conscious state, it's impossible for a third person to understand that. Now, what is the hard problem of consciousness? If you are a neurobiologist or a neuroscientist, or even if you have any friend that's a neuroscientist, or a philosopher, or an outspoken atheist, you would have heard the term the hard problem of consciousness. So, what is it? Well, why subjective experiences arise from non-conscious biological process? Well, why does a unique internal experience arise from non-conscious matter? Listen to what researcher Daniel Bohr said on this. Well, there are a lot of heart problems in the world, but only one gets to call itself the heart problem. That is the problem of consciousness. How so 1300 grams or so of nerve cells conjures up the seamless kaleidoscope of sensations, thoughts, memories and emotions that occupy every waking moment. Now, let us address what is the hard problem of consciousness from the beginning. Well, in the beginning of the universe, all you were was a simple arrangement of matter which rearranged itself to create a conscious creature. Well, this is absurd. This cannot be true. As I cannot give you $10 if I do not have it. Similarly, consciousness cannot come from cold, lifeless, unconscious things. Because in the beginning of the universe, everything was unconscious. Even matter today, if you look at the wall, you don't say that that wall is conscious, or that you are listening this on your phone, or maybe on your computer, maybe on any place. You don't say that it's conscious. You never say that it's conscious. Well, in his book Consciousness, Confessions of a Romantic Reductionist, Professor Christoph Koch openly admits, and he says, how the brain converts bioelectrical activity into subjective states, how photons are reflected off water are magically transformed into the percept of an indecent aquamarine mountain town is a puzzle. The nature of the relationship between the nervous system and the consciousness remains elusive and the subject of heated and interminable debates. Explaining how a highly organized piece of matter can possess an interior perspective has daunted the scientific method, which in so many other areas have proved immensely fruitful. Now, for your information, Christoph Koch is an atheist, and he believes that consciousness is not given to us by God or any other, by aliens or intelligent design. He does not believe on that. He believes on a complete physical process, and he says that we gain consciousness because of physical processes. Now let us address some failed approaches. Now the number one failed approach, according to me, is the biological approach. Well, some of these attempts include by Francis Crick and Christopher Koch's book Toward a Neurobiological Theory of Consciousness, or the Bernard Barr's book Global Workplace Theory, or you can say the Gerald Edelman's and Giulio Tononi's The Dynamic Core Theory, or Semir Zeki's microconsciousness theory. Well, there are many more, but just for an overview of what we are talking about, these four are okay. Now listen to what Professor David Chalmers explained. Listen to this. He explains the failure of the biological approaches in addressing the hard problems of consciousness. In his book, The Character of Consciousness, Professor David Chalmers says that the first strategy is to explain something else. Researchers simply admit the problem of experience is too difficult for now. Christoph Koch admits it. So they are basically just ignoring the problem. And that's not how science works. This is hypocrisy. When it comes to God, you know everything. You say the science can prove everything. But when it comes to something that science even cannot explain, well, they are making some changes in their thinking and ideological thinking. Well, then he says the second strategy is to deny the hard problem of consciousness. It is to decide that we are zombies. We only have an illusion of free will. Well, in other words, it ignores that real problem and redefines what it is to be a human. Well, this again is wrong because you cannot just redefine what it is to be a human. You have to prove how consciousness came in the first place. How does it work? Moving on, the third strategy claims that subjective experience is explained by understanding the physical processes in our brain. Well, however, this sounds like magic. How do these processes give rise to an inner subjective experience is never answered. The fourth strategy is to explain the structure of experience. This strategy tells us nothing of why experience exists in the first place, hence it provides no answers. And now the fifth strategy, it's a little, difficult one, so please keep your brain open to understand it. The fifth strategy is to isolate the substrate, it means the underlying basis of layer of experience. However, this strategy does not explain what it is like to have an internal conscious experience. Why it emerges from these processes and how is never answered from this strategy. Well, there are some other approaches to solve consciousness. Now we are gonna give we are gonna shed some light on the materialistic approaches. Materialistic approaches means that physical facts are all not facts, as Frank Jackson's Mary example. Now this is an example that was given by Frank Jackson, so listen to this example very carefully. It will help you understand the problem and the hard problem of consciousness in a even better form and manner. So here we go. Mary lived all her life in a black and white room. Okay, she only saw black and white. One day she is allowed to leave the house and sees a red rose. She can only appreciate the red color when she sees it. Her knowledge about all the physical facts concerning visual perception and many more things. For example, let me give you an example. Let me repeat this example. Mary lived all her life in a black and white room. She only saw black and white. One day she is allowed to leave the house and sees a red rose. She can only appreciate the red color when she sees it. Her knowledge about all the physical facts concerning visual perception and colors did nothing to prepare her for new experiences of seeing red. She came to know about what it was like to see the red rose when she saw it, not before it. So until and unless Mary didn't saw the red color, she cannot appreciate it. She does not even knows what a red color. Can you explain how a color looks if a person hasn't seen it? No. What will you say? You cannot. Well, Chalmers says materialism cannot solve these points. Mary knows all the physical facts. Materialism cannot prove it. Mary does not know all the facts. Materialism cannot even prove that she does not know all the facts. It cannot even prove that. The physical facts do not exhaust all the facts. This is also one of the things that materialism cannot explain. Now, Chalmers says that knowledge of the physical world cannot and will not lead to the knowledge of subjective conscious reality. Moving on. Well, Chalmers generalizes the argument and says, well, the first point that he, says is there are truths about consciousness that are not deducible from physical truths. The second point he says, if there are truths about consciousness that are not deducible from physical truths, then materialism is false. Then the third point he makes it very clear and very straightforward. The third point is materialism is false. Well, let's talk about the different materialistic approaches. The first one is eliminative materialism. Or if I would have to say this in one line, it means let's ignore the problem. It says that everything can be explained via physical processes and do not accept that subjective conscious states exist. Wow, very good. Well, it is wrong as physical and chemical processes tell us nothing about what it is like to have, for a particular conscious being to have an internal subjective experience. No physical process, no chemical process explains us that. So, no, it's not that it can be explained by physical processes. And matter cannot explain the emergence of subjective conscious experience because, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, matter is cold, lifeless, blind, and non conscious. So, if I do not have $10, how can I give you $10? Now, as Daniel Dennett, he published a very criticized book known as Consciousness Explained, according to which we are just biological robots, or as we know them as zombies. And the second type of materialism is reductive materialism. And as I say, I would like to, burn it down to one line. And while burning down this entire reductive materialism to one line, it means subjectivity exists. They believe that subjectivity exists, but it's just matter. Well, it asserts that there is a knowledge gap between physical processes and subjective conscious experiences. And reductive materialism, unlike eliminative materialism, accepts that subjective consciousness exists but can be reduced to physical happenings in our brain. But this does not solve the hard problem of consciousness, as it is impossible to know what it is like for an organism to feel subjective consciousness by observing a bunch of neurons firing. The difference between both of these materialism is that eliminative materialism argues that subjective consciousness does not exist, which is absurd and is an illusion. Reductive accepts that subjective consciousness exists. They believe that yes, it does exist, but maintains that it is nothing more than physical activity in the brain. Well, both of them, listen to this very carefully, both of them fail to address the first person fact of subjective consciousness. How it is that a person, when it feels to have this inner subjective experience, neither of these two materialistic approaches can prove that. So this is just the first part for the argument for consciousness. As you guys know that consciousness is a very vast and a very deep argument, if I could say so. So the second part will be coming soon. In the second part, I will be talking about behaviorism, and I will be talking about functionalism and emergent materialism. Then there are weak and then there are strong emergent materialisms. Then this is the materialistic approaches. Then there will come the immaterialistic approaches, or also known as non-materialistic approaches, which consist of substance dualism and epiphenomenalism and panpsychism. Everything is consciousness. And then I will be talking a little bit about interactionist problem. And so okay, that's all, I guess. Assalamu alaikum.